Hello everybody, I'm Dr. M. Welcome to VMC. Today we are covering a topic that's been getting a bit more attention again recently, and this is the topic of feeding raw food to cats. There was a recent research paper published on the topic that brings up some new considerations about this practice of raw feeding. I will be covering what you need to know about the science, what research tells us, and how to keep your cat and yourselves as safe as is possible. So join me, you'll learn something today. So first, why was this study even done? Well, raw and so-called minimally processed diets have become a bit more popular among some people recently who are looking to feed what they will call a natural diet to their pets. We do have decades of previous research on the topic, and I've covered all of that research in my previous nutrition series when I talked about raw food. So I will make sure to link that video series in the video description for you, as that background information is important for you to know as well. This particular study, however, decided to look more at what specific contaminations are concerns with raw food diets. And they also are looking at the One Health dimension of this, because what impacts our pets that live with us can also impact any people that live in the same household. So this study looked at 112 commercially available diets, and they compared microbial communities, culturable pathogens, and the resistance genes that were present in raw diets, in freeze-dried diets, and in conventional cooked diets. Now, a lot of this research paper is a bit technical, so I'll do my best to summarize what the findings were. Fascinatingly, approximately 10% of the diets contained ingredients that were not on the label for those diets. This is one of the many reasons why, if you are attempting to rule a food allergy in or out for one of your pets, you cannot simply switch to another commercial diet. In the formulas that had gone through different raw processing, there was a high number of pathogens cultured. For bacteria specifically, there was a lot of Salmonella and E. coli. Salmonella, for example, was found in 16% of the samples, and both the E. coli and Salmonella were only found in the raw products. They were not found in the cooked products. Now, I'm not going to say it's impossible, just that the likelihood of these pathogens being present in a cooked product is significantly lower, making the cooked products significantly safer. Both Salmonella and E. coli can impact humans. Other genera of human health concern that were found in the raw products included Chronobacter, Enterobacter, Enterococcus, and a few others. So finding this high chance of contaminants like these actually wasn't a surprise to me. We have previous research that demonstrates this clearly already, along with showing risks of things like TB, and avian influenza more recently has been found. So I was not surprised about these contaminants. The entire reason we cook food is to make it safer and reduce the likelihood of these sorts of issues being present. The result that did really surprise me was the amount of antibiotic-resistant pathogens that were found in these diets. This is a significant problem because antibiotic resistance as a whole is an issue for animals and for people. And in veterinary medicine especially, there is a lot of focus on very careful and specific antibiotic use in order to reduce the likelihood of causing resistance in the future. And this is why, if your veterinarian ever prescribes you an antibiotic for your pet, it is so important that you give it as the label says and that you give the entire course of the antibiotics. There's also more research coming out that there is some crossover between the gut microbiome for people and for our pets. And so if our cats and dogs are getting infected with antibiotic resistant bacteria, it is going to put any people and any other animals who come into contact with that animal also at risk of getting that same infection. And I want to put a reminder in here that freeze-dried products are not cooked. Freeze-dried products are also raw products, and they carry all the same risks as all of the other raw products do. People will often think that freeze-dried is safe because it's a bit more stable and it's often found on a shelf instead of in a fridge or a freezer, but that is not correct. Another result that surprised me a little bit was that 16 of the raw products also had parasites contaminating them. None of the conventional products did, only the raw products. In this particular research study, they also did do some viral screening, and they did find some traces of some viruses, but none of them that would be significantly likely to be harmful to people. However, as I briefly mentioned before, we do have other case studies where cats have been dying after eating a raw formula of food because these raw products are being contaminated with HPAI, or highly pathogenic avian influenza. We know that this avian influenza is currently spreading amongst birds and cows and a number of other different species. I've covered the topic twice before. I can make sure those videos are also linked in the video description for you. It is a continuously changing topic. I really should do another update for it, but the viral risk for raw products is also very present. As previous decades of research on pet food have clearly demonstrated, there are zero benefits to feeding a raw diet. There are none. There are, however, a lot of risks. These risks can be summarized into a few different categories, one being that raw food diets are essentially never properly formulated, so you're feeding unbalanced nutrition to your animal, which over the long term causes significant health problems. And we also know that there is a much higher chance of raw diets carrying harmful bacteria, parasites, viruses, even fungus. This is a huge risk to the animal that is being fed this, as well as to any person or animal that comes into contact with an animal being fed this. Every single year, I will have some patients die that are being fed a raw diet because of these contamination problems and because of the unbalanced nutrition. I have had one client who died because they fed their pet a raw diet. I will never forget these things, and the harm that raw diets cause is huge, and without any proven benefits, it is not recommended to feed a raw diet. This study did recommend that we should pass legislation that forces raw food pet products to carry labels that clearly outline the significant risk that feeding these things causes. And another thing that may need to be considered is that the FDA expands their oversight into which contaminations they end up tracking and testing for. They may need to go beyond testing just for salmonella, for example, to testing for drug-resistant strains that may be present as well. So based on all of the decades and decades of research we have on the topic, feeding raw diets in any form is highly discouraged. This includes commercially frozen and freeze-dried products, as well as refrigerated products. None of the current processing methods do anything to reduce the significant risks that these diets pose. And there are no current raw feeding practices that are considered safe or appropriate. The current standard of care is to feed a research-based formula that is properly balanced and formulated, and that meets every single one of the WSAVA guidelines. For people who prefer not to be looking at a canned or a kibble formula, there are some fresh food formulas that currently meet these standards, and any of the aforementioned are options that are recommended and appropriate to feed to your pet. If you want more information on who pet food nutrition experts actually are, and who they aren't, along with what the WSAVA guidelines are, please see my previous video series on pet food nutrition, where I cover a bunch of different topics within that series. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments section, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.